Hello diggers, I'm in the garage today and I'm going to be working on fixing my starter. I had an issue at the last race where putting the car away, I got through the race, but I could hear that it was starting to grind a bit trying to start it. And when I went to put the car away and the trailer fired up, it wasn't engaging with the flex plate anymore. And kind of what I found out is the little gear on the starter, I've chewed that up. I've chewed that up. Now this starter's only like a year old, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't shim it. Because when I put it on there, made it up to the block just fine, seemed to be good. You know, checking clearances, it wasn't like the gear was getting stuck with the flex plate. So I thought it was good. Slapped it on there, it was good. But I think it probably would be smarter to run a shim or two if you can, just to give it a little extra clearance. Moreover, so when it throws that little gear out into the flex plate, it doesn't start beating up the end of the gear. I think that's kind of what it did over time, was beating on it, rounding it off a bit more, and then it just started to chew into it some more, and finally it had had enough and stopped working. So I've not replaced a starter clutch assembly before, but I'll get into that. But I called the manufacturer and they said, oh, you know, you don't have to just buy a whole new starter. You can actually replace the little clutch assembly. Because I thought maybe I could just replace the little gear itself. And they don't necessarily sell just the little gear on the end. Comes as a whole assembly, but at a fraction of the price of buying a new starter. And the starter's good. It's a good starter. It's good for like 18-to-1 compression. So I'm happy with that. It turns the motor over great, but so I'm happy that for a fraction of the price of a new one, I can just put in this new clutch assembly. So I've never done that before, but you'll get to see how that goes here on Diggers. So here it is, a Powermaster Performance starter. I have the XS Torque series, and as I said, they say these are rated for 18.5-to-1 compression, which is plenty good for my 13-to-1 compression motor, but you know, way better than just stock starter 2. Would have a harder time turning my engine over, but this one gets it pretty good. But as I was saying, this gear has been beat up pretty bad on the ends. You can see the shiny part where it's been getting at it, and beaten on the front leading edge of the gear. What I liked about this too, it's not applicable to my setup currently, but this particular one also has they call it their Infiniclock, so that you can clock the starter in different positions all the way around, sort of 360 with this ring. Do want to make sure it's good and tight when you have it where you want it. When I first installed it, it wasn't super tight or anything from the factory. I didn't realize it, and after a while it started to move the starter a bit. It was loose. I had to fix that. But anyway, so yeah, this just started eating away at the gear, and finally it ate it and rounded off enough that it wasn't happy. It wasn't engaging with the flex plate at all. So again, I called Powermaster and they said, hey, just get a clutch assembly and you can replace that clutch assembly and you'll be good to go. Here's what that looks like. So this is what I sent. I'm guessing it's remanufactured, because I did see I ordered this from a place called Pace Performance because they had the best price to get it to me shipped. Didn't see anything about it saying it was new, but just seeing a lot of dings in this little collar here, which is kind of, I don't like that. I'm not sure what happened with that. It certainly wasn't a shipping thing. It was packed well. A box inside a box with some good packing around it, but yeah, I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, you know, probably a core piece that they then put all the parts together in to make it. So I assume that that's what that is, but I don't believe that's going to be anything that'll cause me an issue. But I'll look at that as we get in there. I got kind of a roller bearing in the front, the back. That's what really is going to be housing everything. So I think we're good with not worrying too much about that piece in there. So let's get into it. Gonna have to get that off of there. All right, so this here is a T20, Torx 20, to get this ring out of here. Oh, that one was pretty loose. And again, if you've got this Infiniclock, make sure that it is good and tight, because it'll start to slip and rotate if it's not. Can also note here that there is a 0 mark to line up with these bolts. So I actually have it canted just a little bit, makes it fit a little more flush inside my chassis bars. But that's kind of the nice thing about this, is you can rotate it around to where you want it. All right, now with that off of there, this piece just comes right off the front. This billet piece here, this block. All right, now we got 2 bolts here, and these 2 bolts here on the back will allow this whole cover piece to come off. These bolts here on the back that are long, these are 5/16. All right, sorry for the angle change. I hope it's not too confusing, but to keep this in a nice upright position while I work on it, I opted to put it in my vise just lightly. Again, I want to make sure I don't lose that little check ball. And I hear it, and there's a spring, and it just popped off. Okay. All right, so you see what we're dealing with here. This ball goes down inside here and sits on top of this spring. So the key is you just don't want to lose that. It's down in there, and then you've got this piece here just kind of sitting. This sits in there like that. And what we're taking out is this piece, and it's greased up pretty good, so you kind of got to be a little bit cautious with how you put this all on there. All right, so now that I've got all my pieces out, and something to note here, this guy has these little rollers in here in this cage. Okay, that sits in here like this. So those again can fall out. You don't want to lose those, and just make sure you got those, set those aside. But now that we get this exposed, I'm just going to set this in here and lightly tap this whole clutch assembly out. All right, so there's the old clutch assembly. It is out. You can really see how those gears are stripped. Everything else looks to be okay otherwise. Now, one of the things, though, to note, and I was told this by the tech guy at Powermaster, I said, well, you know, can I just get a little gear? That was my first question. I just want to replace a little gear in the front. And there are instructions to slide this gear off by kind of squeezing these pieces together. Exposes a little lock ring in here, and you take that out, slides out. But what he pointed out was most of the time when you have a gear getting beat up, like you're describing, it also wears out the clutch assembly and they go bad. So really, you just want to replace the whole entire thing. And you know, as I roll this, I do feel like it's rough in the way it's sort of rolling. So I think he's spot on that the whole assembly got worn out as well. So I'm gonna get the new one. All right, so this is the new clutch assembly that's going in, and I've quite generously lubed it up. And you'll want to do that because it doesn't come with any kind of grease on it. So throw a little grease on that. You can see there's plenty inside from the old one, but that's going to go right back down in there. And we're going to tap that into place. What I'm finding is you'll want this gear slid all the way forward because it does move. Hard for me to do when it's greased up, but this slides back and forth here. So now that I got it all the way seated forward, I should be able to tap on the outer part. I got to get like a socket, something to surround, and just get on this gear to start tapping it in. It looks a little more straight on. Don't want that to be getting in here. There she goes, and you can kind of hear it bottomed out. And that is in there. New clutch assembly in place. Now we're going to put it all back together. So, first up, this guy. Again, you don't want to lose these pieces. Come right out. They're just held in with this little plastic cage there. But we're spinning nice there. Maybe. Let's go all the way around. There we go. Now it's happy. Okay. Bring my starter housing back up here. Okay. Spring is on. And we need our little check ball. That's got to go right on there. So here's the tricky dicky part. I want that to just, see, I knocked it off of there. Get yourself a little magnet. That'll really help with this ball. Just got to slide this guy right over that without knocking that ball off of there. And we're on and in and down. But there it goes. Okay, I'm back. What you missed, you didn't see, off camera quick I had to do, I realized like as I was bolting this part back up that these gaps were opening up. See, this can all be disassembled. And it was kind of going in a little cattywampus. You can see it's sort of doing it on this side, but the trick I think is just to get this even. So I got it a little better on that side. So now I'm going to work on getting this side clamped down, and then we'll do the other top bolts. But just want to make sure it all goes back together cleanly. And there are, you can see a little rubber gasket kind of seals in there to help ensure that it stays watertight. All right, one last check. Make sure it's all back together, everything's tightened up. I've got a battery here on the bench. Just want to check that we've got a spinning starter. Looking good. I'd say we're good to go.